So just this past Friday, Trafalgar polling released a poll that included over 1,000 participants that showed, first of all, that America's most popular governor, Governor Phil Scott, was expected to earn 65%, over 65% of the general election vote. Those are very similar to the results that we saw in 2020 when Governor Scott faced an opponent with even higher name ID than this year's opponent. So we were excited to see that, and we sincerely thank Vermonters for their continued support for Governor Phil Scott. But what I thought was even more exciting news was the results from the U.S. Senate race. In that race, Trafalgar had Gerald Malloy within 7 points of progressive Democrat Peter Welch. And while these results might be surprising to some, they are actually confirmation of some of the things that I've been hearing from our candidates that we've been hearing at the state party, which have been kind of anecdotal experiences up to this point. But voters telling us that they have voted Democrat in the past, but this year they're walking away. They're making a change, and they're more likely to be voting Republican. And we're glad to see that this is happening even at the U.S. Senate level, right? Now, during the primary, there were many political observers, myself included, who were a little skeptical of the polling that showed Gerald Malloy ahead of Christina Nolan. But when the primary results came in, we found out that that polling information was more accurate than many of our local prognosticators. And so it's not hard to believe that a similar kind of thing could be in the works here for the general election. This is especially true because in the past week or so, when this poll was taken, was shortly after President Biden's speech, including incredibly divisive rhetoric, which is on top of the series of cascading crisis after crisis that we've experienced under Democrat rule. And that's put a lot of pressure on Democrats like Peter Welch, who've accomplished virtually nothing over his last decade and a half in Washington. And instead, folks like Welch have been a rubber stamp on every bad policy that Biden has put forward over the last 2 years. Meanwhile, Gerald Malloy's Common Sense campaign, which is looking to represent independent-minded Vermonters instead of Peter's pandering to the far left, his campaign is reaching new people who have not voted Republican in the past. They want a new direction away from a lot of the shortages that we have seen in everything from gasoline and electricity, baby formula, housing, childcare, even the workforce. Democrats have been in charge, and things aren't going well. The hard work that Gerald Malloy has done to reach out to voters is beginning to pay off, and it's bringing a new level of excitement to Republicans across the state. Vermonters are not happy with the status quo and Peter Welch's Washington machine. We expect Democrats to do the same thing they've been doing this whole time. They have engaged in a constant and consistent practice of ignoring information that doesn't conform to their progressive echo chamber. They will likely pan these results, creating excuses instead of addressing the serious problems that their party leader, President Biden, has created with their divisive rhetoric, which is turning off independents. For 2 years, Democrats have been covering their ears, pursuing their own far-left agenda without listening to public input. They didn't listen to law enforcement, telling Democrats that we were headed for a public safety crisis. They didn't listen to financial experts, telling Democrats that we were headed for an inflation crisis. And they certainly haven't been listening to parents who have been trying to tell them that there are problems in our schools. Democrats dismiss anything that doesn't contradict. Democrats dismiss anything that contradicts their agenda, and they are likely going to dismiss these poll results in a similar manner. But this is one of the side effects that comes with single-party rule under Democrats. Now, if they continue to irresponsibly ignore the obvious signs around them, the way that they have with education, inflation, public safety, then it will present an incredible opportunity for Vermont Republicans to shock the world by helping elect Gerald Malloy, who is out there listening to the concerns of Vermont voters that he's speaking with every single day. Vermont's a small state, small media market. This U.S. Senate race could be won with just 150,000 votes or fewer. So a very modest investment could produce outsized results. And if this race brings in new financial support, the state party stands ready to help turn out and energize voters who want to support all of our great Republican candidates, from the ones mentioned in the Trafalgar poll, like Governor Scott and Gerald Malloy, as well as other great candidates like Lieutenant Governor Joe Benning, our other statewide candidates like H. Brooke Page, Mike Tagliavia, and Rick Morton, down to over 100 other candidates for various House and Senate races across the state. Vermont Republicans are out there listening to what voters are telling us, while Democrats are dismissing. Vermont Republicans are putting the voters' priorities first, not the parties. This poll indicates voters are starting to see that and are supporting Vermont Republicans at an increasing rate while walking away from the Democratic Party. And that brings a lot of hope and optimism for Vermont Republicans here for the 2022 election.